this function is going to give you an n by n matrix A. So say A, for example, is a 3 by 3 matrix. And it's going to give you a row index I. So say I was our third row. Now in this row I, what you're going to do is you're going to check for the minimum value. So say we find the minimum value here. We're going to set this equal to min val. Then once we find min val, we're going to find at which column this happens. We're going to call that, basically create a column index, and we're going to call it min j. Now, from min j, we're going to swap column min j with column I. So if I was equal to 3, then column I would also be in column 3. So this is also equal to I. And then once we get those, we're going to swap these, all right? So we're just going to swap columns. That's all it is. Now, if I is outside our range, and what is our range? Well, our range is anywhere between our first column or our first row to our last column, last row. We're just going to create a string that tells us that I is not within our proper range. And that's about it for our function. So the first steps is to write out function. And our output is our new matrix A, and our name is call swap. And our inputs are a n by n matrix A and our row index I, which is also our column index. Then we're going to find the size of our matrix. So we're just going to say this right here. We're going to put n to represent our size. We're going to just put this to not have n written twice, although you could also do this, but I prefer this method. And then we can say size of A. Then we're going to create an initialization for min val. Now, we could say this. We could say min val is equal to 0. But what if all the values were negative? That would not work. So what we're going to do is just set this to the first value in row I. So in row I, we're just going to set this to the first value. Then that means min j is also going to be set to the first column. This is our initializations. Then, after we have all this, what we're going to do is create an if statement. So this massive if statement is going to have whether I is within our range or not. So if, we're going to say if I, and I has to be greater than or equal to 1, and at the same time, I has to be less than or equal to n. If this is true, then we're going to go through our entire process. If not, we're going to do this string. So our first step of the process is finding min val. So we're going to say we're going to use a for loop to go through every single column in row I and check if it's less than min val. So we're going to say for I is equal to. Now we can say 1 through n, or we can say 2 through n. And the reason we can do that is because we've already initialized our min val, min j at the first column. So the only necessary step is to check everything after the first column. So for this basically statement, for I 2 through n, what we're going to do is going to create an if statement that says if, and then A of row I, and then column, and let's call this j instead, column j is less than our min val. If it is, then our new min val value is going to be that element. And then our new min j value, which is our column index, is going to equal that column. And we're going to end it there and end this for loop there. So this is for our if statement, this is for our for loop. Then the next step would be to swap. So if we're going to swap our rows, what we're going to do is go through every single row, or swap our columns, we're going to go through every single row in these two columns, and we're going to swap them one by one. So what we would do is say for, and then say k is equal to 1 through n, all the rows. We're going to create a temporary variable, and this is going to store A of row k right here and column min j. Then we're going to set this element equal to A of the same row but in column I. And then we're going to do the same thing over again, but setting that back to our temporary variable. And then we just end it right there. So that's our swapping. Now, we've done all of that. However, if our basically range was not within what we wanted, then we're going to say else, all right? This is not, like the I is not within our range, so we can't do this. We're just going to say else A is equal to our string that the question tells you to write down. So it's just a string. And then you would just end the function. Well, first of all, you have to end the if statement, and then we're going to end the function. Now, say you didn't want to swap one by one, and you just wanted to swap all the rows at once, you can just do this right here. You can just say, instead of the for loop, you can say temporary variable is going to equal all of the rows in min j, column min j, and then we're going to take all these rows in that column and switch it, or give it the value of all the rows in column I, and then all the rows in column I, we're going to give it the value of our temporary variable. And this is how you do it without having to go one by one. So to reiterate what we just did, we pre-allocated values. So we pre-allocate here, and we use the first value instead of 0. And then what we did here was find min j, our column index, as to where the minimum value is found. And then we're going to swap our rows. Else here, we're just going to give I is not. So I here is not in range. And that's all there is to this function.